So you've been at Crown, and then during your time at Crown, you also get involved with CWP, RIP, Cadets Winter Percussion, right? So what year did that all kind of start up?
So CWP, there was actually a little bit of crossover with C2, which is, I mean, definitely how I ended up in the position I did. So now that you ask, I'm really not sure. I don't remember like the first conversations about this starting, but I do remember that the first, they tried to get Tom Monks to do it. They tried to get Colin to do it. And then Johnny Trujillo, who is the guy at Bucks right now, he was actually the original, program guy, battery designer at CWP. And that ended up falling through because of some endorsement stuff, which is, and the farther I get into this, the more I realize that like these groups are really heavily tied in with their sponsors, and they don't want to make hires like that to like prolific positions that are going to be kind of crossing that bridge, if that makes sense. So I believe he was an IP artist, and YEA is very Vic Firth, and they have a very deep relationship with them. So Johnny was only there for, I want to say, like 3 or 4 weeks, and we actually I was hired originally to just be like the battery coordinator or whatever. I was just going to teach a drum line. I wasn't supposed to write. I wasn't supposed to do any of the stuff I ended up doing. And we actually had the first design meeting ever for CWP was me, Rich, and Johnny, and that was it. I forget. I don't know, like, again, what happened with George and him and how that went down, but it just kind of fell to me. That definitely wasn't the plan. There was definitely the sense from the beginning that it was kind of created to be like a feeder, obviously, as it should be. Like C2's feeding the cadets, and now they want an indoor line that's also going to feed the cadets. And it just kind of blew up into something that was successful on its own, kind of unexpectedly, I would say.
Yeah, started out in open. What year was that, 2016?
14.
14? Oh, wow, I was way off. Samsonite. Swami, Samsonite. So 14 started out open class. You guys won first year out.
Yeah.
Is that the first book you've written for like on that scale, I guess, of organization?
Absolutely. So the year before that, actually, so Imperial Dynasty, to circle back now, had come back out. 2013 was the first year they participated in WGI, and it was an A class. And I did the program. I wasn't hired to do this. I was supposed to just help teach the snares, and the way things fell, like I ended up doing a lot more. I ended up kind of rewriting the book, and Andrew Montero came in and like rewrote the pit book, and we ended up going out to Dayton and making finals in A class, which is, I personally think that's really hard to do. There were 30 groups, and we were in the top 15 or 12. We ended up in 9th. I forget how many they take to finals at that point, but that was tough. So I kind of had that initial experience of like what it's like to create an independent indoor show. But yeah, CWP was the first open class show for sure. And it was interesting because we didn't have any competition at all that season until prelims day in Dayton. So we had literally no idea what was about to happen. Like, we didn't know if we were good. We didn't know if we were about to get stomped. It was a total question.
Yeah, that seems like such a handicap for the East Coast groups that compete in WGI, because the Midwest is fairly saturated with a handful of very high caliber groups, and then obviously the West Coast is very saturated. In the East Coast, it's like, well, we're just going to kind of sit over here and do our thing, and then wait till we all get to Dayton and see how the chips fall.
Yeah, we're over here in our tiny gyms working it out. Yeah,
the gyms are tiny everywhere, but well, unless you're maybe in like Florida, Texas, and California, you can play outside.
Yeah, well, I mean, I forget who said this. At some point, we were on tour. I think it was Ron Harden, actually, who was the Vish caption head at Crown my first 4 years there, and he was just talking about how like the East Coast schools are literally smaller because they're older. Like, they were built years before like all this the new ones in like Texas and Cali and even Ohio with some of the new schools and whatnot. They're literally smaller. It's funny.
It's a good point.
And that's one of the things that shocked me being on tour when you get to Texas, and the schools aren't small in Louisville or Kentucky, but nothing like the schools are in Texas. Like the facilities, the size, all of it.
Yep.
It's crazy, man. CWP, first year out, open class, gold medalist.
Yeah.
Next year, made the jump, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Made the jump to world. So that was 2015. What show was that?
That was Deconstructed.
That's probably all right. Pause. I was recently talking to Dan Shack. It was a completely different topic, but I was talking about CWP, and I was like, we're just talking about creativity and innovation in the activity, and as far as that goes, and it's really hard to do for anyone to just design something that you feel like you've never seen or is an original idea or super creative. And that show is one that does stick out to me where I was like, man, that is really cool. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that to that extent, I guess, as far as the show design and the Deconstructed and the drums and the skeletons and all that stuff as far as the hardware. So I really like that show, but continue.
Thank you. That was that was crazy too. It was another one of those instances where we really didn't know how we were going to do. And there were a ton of growing pains administratively from, going from an open class group, really going from nothing to an open class group to a world class group where, just it increases the amount of pressure and kind of stress that everyone is going through to kind of make it happen on just a different level. But it was a really unique kind of cast of designers that year. Like Mark Sylvester was hugely influential. Like it was his idea to use the fridge, and he obviously did a large part of the drill that year too. He designed the uniforms. It was actually Andrew Montero's idea, for the concept rather, which I just look back and I think it's like a perfect concept. You know what I mean? And probably no offense to the members or staff of this group, but probably a better group could have won with that concept, if we had had a little more, knowledge of the activity. I was like 25, 24 years old. We were all kind of around the same age, so I think that concept is just so obvious. You know what I mean? We knew what the end was going to be from the beginning. Like, Deconstructed. Okay, we have to take everything apart, and we're going to end with everything taken apart. It was like very obvious, and then you just have to go through and make the most interesting vertical moments and events that you can, so we happened across some pretty fortunate ideas that year, I would say.
And you guys made finals, correct?
Yeah, we were sixth. We got sixth
place, PIW, first year in finals.
First year.
That's pretty remarkable. And that's pretty unique scenario too. Obviously you guys are Cadets winter percussion. You're talking about pressure of feeling like you also have to be respectable and compete at a high level because you're also tied to this organization with such a historic rate of success in its own activity.
Yeah. Yep.
But
that was definitely a unique kind of detail of things. It was weird for us because we didn't have anybody on staff, at least at the higher levels, that even marched or taught cadets. It was very disconnected in that way, really until the third year, the final year, where Jeff Sacktig came on board, and we started to have a better relationship with the actual cadets percussion staff, like Colin and all those guys. We, because at first, and I totally get it, it was an inconvenience those first 2 years. Kids were missing cadets camps to go march indoor with us, and they didn't love that. And again, I get that, and it just wasn't set up to totally be cohesive. Not for lack of effort, it just wasn't really happening. And then it finally started to hit a stride, and everybody was getting along, and then it went away.
Went away. Well, it was just kind of from the outside looking in, and this may all be completely wrong, but you guys had obviously been doing a great job as instructors, working with CWP, developing relationship with these kids. But like you said, most of you guys are not teaching at Cadets. You obviously are still with your timeline at Crown. So, and the outdoor-indoor thing has a big influence. I know these people that teach me at indoor. I'm going to go audition for their outdoor group. So that's probably obviously a strain where you have Cadets winter percussion kids no, I'm not marching Cadets. I'm going to go march Crown or something to that effect. And they're like, this isn't doing what we designed it to do.
Yes. Well, you kind of hit it on the head. I would say that was, there's probably a list of 8 to 10 really big reasons why CWP folded when it did. And that was one of the bigger ones for sure, was that, we were now working at Crown, or at least me and a couple other people. And there was starting to be like a pretty even split at that point between who was at Crown and who was at Cadets. And, you know, we didn't put any pressure on them. At least, you know, I don't remember there being any pressure put on like the members to decide either way. They were kind of just doing what they wanted to do. And, you know, as a program that was created as a feeder for a specific organization, I can definitely see how that, you know, that rubs some people the wrong way. I get that.